There we go. Okay. Okay, everybody. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pick out a property and we're going to complete a contract, a Florida real estate contract to make an offer on a property. So I'm in one of my MLSs here. We're in the Beaches MLS, and one of our agents, Michael Clemmer, is going to be the buyer. So we're going to prepare the contract. We're going to send it to him for signatures, and we're going to get it back. So we're going to start from square one as if we're searching for a property. So we're going to come in here, and I'm just going to pull up anything that's on the market here. So we'll do a quick search, and we'll do residential. And we're going to look at, we're going to look at something for, we'll say 750,000 to $1 million. And we want 4 bedrooms. We want 2 bathrooms. Let me see. We want single family only. And you can do anything you want in a search. So I'm just going to pull this up. There's 291 of them that are available. And let's just say we're going to pick out this house here. Let's see, where do you want to be? Here is a house in Lakahatchee we're going to pick. So let's just go here, and we're going to pick this out. So there's the property. It seems like it's on some acreage. Okay, so we're just going to pick this property out. Doesn't matter. Okay, so what we do is we have the property. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the MLS, and we need the MLS sheet. So we're going to print the MLS sheet. We're going to do the agent full, and we're going to make it a PDF. So we're going to go in here, and I'm printing it out as a PDF so we have it. Okay. It'll take a second to generate and come up. Okay, there it is. And now I'm going to download this. And we're going to put MLS test purchase, right? So there we are, MLS test purchase, going to go on a desktop. Okay. Now we're going to get out of here, and we're going to go back into Matrix, and we're going to go back here to the result. Now we have the property. We have the MLS copied. It's already on the desktop. Now we need to get the tax sheet. Okay. So we're going to go into IMAP, and we're going to pull up the tax sheet for the property. See, all this is going to be included in the offer. So you'll have the full offer. You're going to attach the tax sheet. You're going to attach the MLS sheet to it. And you're also going to put the driver's license, any pre-approvals, any, bank statements, if it's a cash deal, all of that you're going to put in there. So we're going to wait a second. This is going to pull up the tax sheet for us. Seems like it's coming up here in a second. Goes. Seems like their system's going a little slow. We can actually close that out. And now our tax sheet will be up here in a second. So the whole goal is you find the property, you take the MLS, you copy it, you print it. You got the tax sheet, which is loading. Keep saying it's connecting. It's right here, Broward, Palm Beaches. Why it's taking so long? It's really weird. There we go. Here is our tax sheet. The tax sheet is going to show us everything about the property. If there's any back taxes, if the taxes are current, tells you who the owner is. It's also going to tell you what they owe on the mortgage. You can get a good background, how long they own the property, any permits that were pulled, if it's in a flood zone. All those things are going to be right here on this sheet. It seems like it's loading a little slow, but in the meantime, while that's loading, so I can go over it with you, I'm going to take a copy of the property ID number. This property ID number is what you need to populate into the contract all the information for the property. So we're going to take that and we're going to copy it. So while this is loading, I've never in my life had one take this long to load, but now it's going to take that long. So hold on a second here. I'm going to refresh it once. So while that's loading, I'm going to let that load. Let's pretend it's already on the desktop. Right? Let's pretend it's already printed. I'll come back and do that in a second. So now we're in here, okay? And we're going to go back to Matrix, and we're going to start a new file for an offer. So you're going to come into Matrix. You're going to go into Transaction Desk, okay? transaction desk is going to open. And here it is. And we need to go home and we need to create a new file. Okay, so we're going to go here and we're going to create a transaction. See it right here? We're going to create a transaction and we're going to call this Michael Clemmer test purchase. Now, normally you would put the property address there, right? It would be the property address for the property. And we're going to import the data. Now, I don't use templates. You can set a template up with certain forms and things like that. I don't do that because for me, each deal is different. Some deals are going to have lead paint disclosures, some aren't. Some are going to have HOA disclosures, some aren't. Some are going to have property contingencies, some aren't. So if you do templates, you would have to set up a template for each one and then click it. What I do is I add the forms as I need them. And I'll show you guys that right now. We'll add lead paint. We'll add a HOA disclosure. It doesn't matter if the property has one or not. I just want to add them so you guys see how it's done. Okay. So you're going to look at the type of it. Don't really need to put that in there either. Go import the data. And we're going to import it from IMAP, right? Because IMAP is where we got the tax record, right? Now it's loaded. So all the tax record is here. Let's look over this quick before we go back. You take the property ID number, and that's how you populate it for IMAP, like I just showed you. And it gives you the information, the owner, okay? Everything about the property, how it's zoned. It's zoned agriculture. So they have the agriculture exemption for taxes. You're going to see their taxes is $4,000 on $1 million property, right? That's crazy. It should be like 20,000, 15,000. But because they have the ag exemption, they qualify for it if it's agriculture use, right? Now you can see the history of the property, right? So let's look here. This property was built in 1979, okay? It looks $16,500 the land was bought for. $135,000 they built the house for back in 1983. Well, no, 83 was the land. And it looks like they built it. Yeah, in 90. And then here you have it sold in 2001. And the people from 2001 transferred it to their family for nothing. They just did a family transfer. It looks like they had some home equity loans on it here. So it gives you the history of everything. So this family that's owned it since 01 owned it all the way in 2011. They gave it to inner family, maybe kids, sister, brother. That's what that is. And you can see the deeds. The deeds are right here. If you click this, it'll show you the deed. Okay. It gives you the constructive notice. So this is whatever they did to transfer it. It's all right here. Okay. So whatever they did is in here. Okay. So that gives you an example. You literally have access to all this information for your clients. And then down here, it tells you what schools you go to. And it tells you if it's in a flood zone, right? Everything's down here. So anyway, what you're going to want to do is you want to print this as well, right? So we're going to go over here and we're going to do and we're going to say this is a PDF, right? We're going to save that and we're going to put it on the desktop and we're going to call it tax. I'm just going to put Mike tax test. I'm just going to, normally I put the property address in there and tax record. But for this, I'm going to do this for our test, right? And I'm going to save that to the desktop. Now we can take a quick look over to the desktop just to see, make sure everything's there. So we're going to come over here and it's going to be over here. You're going to see we have MLS and we have tax record, right? So we have both of those there. Okay. So now let's get back into what we're working on. Now I can close this out because I no longer need this, but I'm going to leave it up there for a second in case the thing doesn't populate in, and then we'll take it out in a minute. So let's go back to transaction desk. Now we have our MLS copied. We have our tax sheet copied for the record. And we're back over here and we're going IMAP. We're going Palm Beach County because this is in Palm Beach County. We're going to put the tax record in, which is right there. And we're going to represent, let's say we're going to be the listing agent on this, right? Because We're the selling agent right now. We're going to sell it. So we're representing the buyer. I'm not going to use the wizard. We don't want to use the wizard. And it's going to create the listing. It's going to create the file now. See? So it populated all the property, the legal description, everything is populated for us in here. So we have the property now. Now what I need to do is I need to put the contacts in, okay? So Philip Simonetta is going to be the selling agent. Pier 21 Realty is the broker. This is the guy who owns it right now, okay? That's who owns it. It's already showing. It doesn't show the broker for that person, and it doesn't show the other stuff. I would normally put that in, okay? But what I need to do right now is I need to add Michael in, right? So I need to put a new transaction contact, and I'm going to put a buyer, okay? And it's Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, Clemmer, K-L-E-M-M-E-R. Mike, give me your address, your email.
M_Clemmer@iCloud.com.
K-L-E-M-M-E-R at iCloud.com. All right. And your legal name, if it was different, let's say you were under an LLC, that's where you would type that. If it was 123 ABC LLC, if it was an LLC selling it, and that would put that in there. If your preferred signature is different than this, if your preferred initials are different than that, and then add to address book, and then the address. So I'm going to put 123 Main Street. I'm just going to make an address up for where you live. And we're going to, I'm sorry, hold on. So you put 123 Main Street. And then you're going to put, I don't know, we'll put Naples. I'll just make it up. Florida. And what's the zip code over there? I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Yep. 34140, I believe.
Yeah, I'm just going to make it. It does. I'll make it 149. Who cares? And I'm just going to put for your number 777-777-777. And then we're going to go down here. Phone numbers 888-888-888-888. Okay. And now you're going to be saved in there as a contact. Okay. All right. I'm not going to save you my address book because it doesn't, I don't want to save. It's not a correct thing. Okay. So now you're in there. See, now you're a buyer, right? Now, if we want to put the seller's agent in, you can do that, but you don't have to put that here. You can write it in later. Okay. So now we have the property, right? We already have the property in there. We have the buyer in there and our information in there. The next thing we're going to do, we have to add forms. So what are the forms we're going to add? We need to add an as-is contract, right? So we're going to go over here and add a form. And we want an as-is contract. So we're going to come down here. And we're going to go into far bar. Actually, you know what? Let me go the other way. We're going to close that. We're going to come over here. We're going to add a form. And it's going to ask us where we want to add them from. We're going to go far bar, residential contracts. We always use the far bar contracts, and here's why. They're done by the Florida Association of Realtors and the Florida Bar Association. The realtors do them. There's forms in here for commercial. There's forms in here for everything. You always want to use the far bar, okay, for your contracts. Now, we go in here. We want an as-is contract for sale and purchase. That's right here. This would be an addendum. If you have to add an addendum later, this is for vacant land. It's a different contract for vacant land. This is if you have an appraisal contingency. This is if you have an as-is rider. And it goes through assumption of mortgage. So if you're assuming a mortgage, you need to put that rider in there. Backup contract. Let's say there's an offer already on the property and you're putting a backup contract in. This must go in there. Arbitration, like if it's going to arbitration, there's binding arbitration, you need to have that rider done. If the buyer's attorney has to review it before the deal's good to go, you need to put that rider. You have FHA riders, defective drywall. I mean, everything, housing for older persons. If it's HOPA, you need to put that in there. If there's lead paint, there's your lead paint disclosures. So all of these here are all different kinds of documents you could need. If it's a short sale, you need to put a short sale addendum. If you're buying a short sale, if the seller attorney needs to approve it. So like on a short sale, you'll need this and this in there, right? If there's seller financing. So all these riders, condo disclosure, So let's say this property, let's say it was built in 1977, right? So we need to get a lead paint disclosure. So here's the as is. We need that. Now let's say we need a HOA disclosure. Let's say the buyer is getting a mortgage. They're getting an FHA mortgage. We're going to need that. Let's say it's a lead paint disclosure. We're going to need that. And let's say it's going to be, I'm looking for an HOA rider. Let's look for that real quick.
Since it's an ag property, it could do an FDA. Is there an FDA rider?
Let me see. I don't know. There's not an FDA rider because that's a whole different document. Yep.
Okay.
Let me see. The FDA rider would be for the loan, not the property. Just because it's agricultural property doesn't mean it's an FDA rider. The FDA rider would be if it's an FDA loan, like a farm loan, like a loan for 100% on that. Okay. And because it's agriculture doesn't mean it will qualify for that. So, okay, the FDA has regions and they have maps, and certain properties in those maps qualify. So in Lakahatchee, there's a lot of properties that do, but there's also a lot of properties that don't. So you would have to look at their maps and see if that zip code, or because the map actually cuts through zip codes. You got to see if the actual partial is in it. Yep. So here, homeowner association right here. So there are all the documents that we're going to need for this, say. And now we're going to hit add up here. Okay, so look, you have the as is, the lead paint disclosure, the homeowners association, and the FHA rider. All the forms are in there now. Okay. So now what we need to do is we need to go ahead and fill out the contract, how we're going to make the offer. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the as is contract. Okay. And here it is. Now, because I put your name in there and because I filled out everything already, look how everything populates in. If you didn't populate the property, and if I didn't put all the names in and get everything done ahead of time, I'd have to handwrite all this or hand type all this in. So you always want to put the property in. You always want to put the information in. Okay. And there it is. Now, let's say they're asking, what were they asking? $1 million? I forget what the MLS said. They were asking 900,000, right? Or something like that. So let's say we're going to offer them $800,000. Okay. We're going to give them a $50,000 deposit. Okay. Now we're going to do a 10-day inspection. We don't want to give the deposit until the 10-day inspection. So the deposit is to be made within 10 days, not 3. Now, if you left it at 3 days, some sellers will say, no, I want the deposit in 3 days. Some sellers won't allow this, but you can offer this, because if the buyer puts 50 grand in, he has to wire the money. If the buyer backs out of it before the inspection period, they'd have to wire back the money, right? So in a seller's market, that won't work. They're going to want the deposit the next day, maybe. They might not even want to wait 3 days. So automatically, you see here, if you don't fill anything in, it's 3 days, right? If you put 1 day, it has to be in the next day. So if the market's hot and they have 4 offers on the house, you might want to offer 1 day, right? So let's say we know there's other offers coming. So let's say on this house, what we want to do, we're serious about this house. You want to buy it. We're going to put 150,000. We're going to put 100,000 down instead. You see how I'm trying to show you different ways to do this? You want to make your offer as attractive as possible to the seller if there's multiple offers, right? So let's say you're going to do it this way. You're going to put 800,000. You're going to put 100,000. And then what's going to happen is you're going to put over here if there's any additional deposit. So after the inspection, sometimes you could put 800,000 purchase price, $100,000 down. And then after the inspection, you decide to move forward, you'll put another $100,000 down. Or you could put nothing else down. You can just leave it like that. We'll leave it like that. Financing. Okay. So let's say they're going to get financing of, let's say they're going to get 500,000 in financing from a bank. I'm just using round numbers. Okay. So basically they're going to bring 200,000 at closing plus their closing costs. That's what goes in there. It populates in. Okay. Oh, sorry. Take this out of here. That was additional deposit. Financing goes here. Right? So there you go. Okay. So you have offer price, deposit. You're going to put it in within 1 day. You have $500,000 coming from the bank. Buyers bringing 200 grand at closing plus closing costs. That's a rough estimate. Now you're going to put the title company in here. Whoever the title company is that the buyer chooses, you're going to put the address in here. Okay. You're going to put their phone number. You're going to put their email. You're going to put their fax number, whatever, right? In there. So now your first page of your contract is almost complete. All your information, the money you're going to put, the terms, the deposit's going to go in, it's going to get wired, blah, blah, blah. Closing date, we're going to pick September 30th. Nope, that's a Saturday. We can't do that. Let's pick September 29th. Okay, that's page 1 of your contract. Now, you're going to read through this with the client. Every paragraph in here, you're going to read. I'm not going to do that for the argument's sake of doing this with you, but you're going to go through this with the client. This is what this means. This is the offer. This is all the things you're doing. Part 3 is the time of an acceptance. Okay. The time and acceptance, that's not the closing date. So we're making the offer today. So today's date is August 7th. What's today? August 7th or 8th? Okay. So today's August 8th. So we're going to give them till August 9th at 5 p.m. to answer us. If they don't answer us by that, the deal's dead. You have to rewrite a contract. So we're going to send them the offer today. We need to know by 5 p.m. if they're going to accept it or not. Okay. That's the time for acceptance. Okay. Now, once the time for acceptance is in, they're going to give us back, they'll accept it, or they're going to counter us. And then the time for acceptance is usually 48 hours. So if you get a counter offer back, you have up to 48 hours to answer them back if you want it or not. Okay. The next one is the closing date. So it explains what the closing date is, and you have to put a closing date in. So we're going to go over here and we're going to hit September 15th. Let's just use that. Okay. Now down here is going to talk about the extension of the closing date. There's the CFPB requirements, lending requirements, the laws and how that works. Then you're going to talk about occupancy. It's going to go over if the property is occupied. If the property is subject to lease. So if you're renting, if the property is rented right now and the lease doesn't end for 4 more months, you need to check this. And you also need to supply a copy of the lease if the offer is accepted. You got to tell them the terms and all that. We're not going to have that. Let's pretend it's not leased. Assignability is very, very, very important. Okay. If you check the box here, buyer may assign and thereby be released from further liability under this contract. If this box is checked, that means this deal can go through. They can put a deposit down. And if they can't find somebody to assign it to, they can cancel anytime and get their money back. Okay. A seller most likely will not accept this because there's no liability for the buyer. They could take it off the market, be tied up, and there's nothing guaranteeing them it's going to sell. Then you have, they may assign the contract from and not be released from liability. That one's not bad, right? So if I'm buying a house, I can either assign it or buy it. I can't be let go. So if I don't buy it, I lose my deposit, right? You're still contracted to buy it. And then the last one is may not assign this contract. And that's, sellers sometimes want that because they don't want somebody taking it and trying to flip it or trying to sell it. Either way, this one and this one holds the buyer liable. If the buyer breaks the contract, they'll lose their deposit. The first one, the buyer has no risk. They can get their money back the day before closing and cancel. That's your differences there. Does that make sense? So most likely it's going to be this one or this one. Okay. Unless it's a special circumstance. Now here you have financing. So this is if it's a cash transaction, you check A. If it's financing, you check B. And the contract is contingent upon 30 days of the effective date for the loan approval period. Now it's 30 days automatically. You could put 45 in there to protect your buyer. The buyer attaining approval for a conventional loan, or no, actually we're doing FHA, right? Because I did the rider in there. So we're getting an FHA loan. It's fixed, right? And the rate cannot exceed 8%. Let's just put that in there, right? If it does, the buyer can get out of it and get their money back. Okay. And they're going for a 30-year mortgage. Now this stuff, it can be blank, right? You can leave it blank because it says if blank 30. I always fill it in just for my purposes. Buyer shall make application for the financing within 5 days. It's usually already done. They're already approved, right? Because you're not showing them property unless they're approved. And then this goes through all the financing information. Now, when you're working with a client, you're going to explain this to them. You're going to explain the paragraphs to them. You're going to go through all the paragraphs. Now, if there's an assumption of mortgage, you got to check this. And then you got to have the rider. If it's a purchase money mortgage, that means there's seller financing. You got to check this and have the rider, right? Now, this goes over the closing costs to be paid by the seller, and all their costs are here. The closing cost to be paid by the buyer, all their cost is here. Now, in here, you have to put your $395 transaction fee to Pier 21 Realty LLC. If you don't put that in there, you cannot charge that. Okay, that has to be in there. Title evidence, 15 days. This explains the title policies, how the title policies work and everything with that. You come down here. This is about who's paying and designating the title company. This here is where the seller will designate and pay for title. This here is where the buyer shall designate and pay for title. And this here is a Miami-Dade and Broward provision. If the property's in Miami or Dade, you can do this. This is not, it's in Palm Beach. So the buyer is going to pay for the title. Or in Palm Beach, you can request a seller to pay for it. You can request a seller to pay for it everywhere. So when you're making an offer and it's a hot market, maybe you want to have the buyer pay for title, right? You want to have this conversation with the buyer. If it's Palm Beach, we can put seller because Palm Beach County, for some reason, the seller usually pays title. That's kind of like the way it works. They don't have to, but you can always check it because we're in Palm Beach here. Okay, so you check that box. If there's a home warranty, you're going to put the buyer's paying for it or the seller's paying for it, or it's not applicable. We're going to put not applicable. Okay, if there's special assessments, okay, there's two options. The seller shall pay the assessment installments prior to closing, and the buyer will pay the assessments after the closing. Or the seller shall pay in full prior to the time of closing. Every buyer is going to want the seller to pay in full by the time of closing. Okay. Now, that's negotiable. If the buyer really wants the property and the seller says, look, I'm not going to pay that. You have to take it over. I'll pay it up to closing, but you pay it after. That's something that can be negotiable later. Like the offer doesn't have to have that. You put it in the offer, and then you can negotiate on the counter. And then all the disclosures. It talks about rate on gas, permit disclosures, mold, flood zone, energy brochures, lead paint disclosures. We're going to have a lead paint disclosure because we're making this before 78, right? Talks about homeowners insurance, the FIRPTA, the Foreign Investment Tax Act. If they're foreigners, they have to have so much held from the title company. Seller disclosure. Once we do this and we send the offer, they're going to send us the seller disclosure to sign off on. Sometimes in the listing, they'll have the seller disclosure already in there, signed by the seller. And I would add that to this, but I didn't see one in there. We're going to want a 10-day inspection for the property, right? And then this is going to go through walkthrough inspection, seller's assistance and cooperation, closing out permits. If there's any permits open, the seller has to do everything they can to close them out. Escrow agent and broker, it talks about the escrow agent, about the money being held, the laws, the statutes, the professional advice, broker liability. This is the advice we're giving them to complete the contract and complete the offer. Talks about everything about the broker responsibilities, the legalities, default and dispute resolutions. If the buyer defaults, it talks about how they can lose their deposit. Seller defaults, it talks about how the buyer can sue them and what the relief is. Dispute resolutions. You can have your mediation, your arbitration. You can go to court. It talks about the attorney's fees and costs. Standards for the real estate transaction. It talks about the title, the evidence, the restrictions, the easements, the limitations. It goes over all that, verifies all that when you get your title report. The title examination, the process of what they're going to do. The survey of the property. It talks about the ingresses and egresses. Lease information. So if there's any lease on the property, they have 10 days from the contract prior closing to give you all the lease information so you can review it. Liens on the property. The time of the essence, that means it's calendar days. So your inspection period, the weekend counts, right? It's all calendar days, unless otherwise noted. Like if you want business days, you would put that in the additional comments. But everything is calendar days. Force majeure, that's if there's a hurricane and they put a pause on all the deals, or a tornado tears a house up. That lets the contract be canceled. This explains how force majeure works. When there's a hurricane and you're in the cone, no insurance policies will bind. If you have a closing, everything gets paused till after, until that current cone goes away. And usually the insurance company is going to inspect the house before they let you close. I've had that happen a couple times when I've had deals that were closing and there was a hurricane cone and hurricane came through. You had to wait. You had to come inspect it. It gets put off. There's nothing you can do. Nothing you can do about it. Closing location and procedure, closing documents. It goes over all the reporting and filing, credit reporting, currency transaction reports. If somebody brings over $10,000 in cash, they have to do a currency report to the IRS. Escrow closing procedures, prorations credits, all the standards for real estate transactions continued. It goes over the access to provide to conduct the appraisals. You got to let them come in. The seller has to let them in for the walkthrough the day of closing. There's a risk of loss and explains it all. How a 1031 exchange will work if there's a 1031 exchange involved. How the contract is not recordable. The person's bound. There's notice. There's delivery copies, and the contract has execution to it. And this explains how that works. Integration modifications, waivers, any riders and addenda that we're going to put in here, which I'll show you. Collections or collected. It describes the term of the money collected in escrow. And it talks about the applicable law of where this is enforced. And then it goes into the FERPTA withholding. Okay, so when a foreign person sells a property, 15% has to be held in escrow by the title company by law to give the IRS. Because if they're a foreign person, they can skip their tax bill, right? How are you going to get it from them? And that's important. There's a whole thing for that. There's a whole addendum for that. Okay, and this goes over all the IRS rules for that. And then it talks here about the buyer's waivers and claims against the seller, and it goes through the what is waived by doing this. Okay, now down here, this is asking what addenda are included. Okay, so we have a homeowner association rider. We have HHA financing. We didn't do a contingency. We have a lead paint disclosure. And we have all the other information here. If there was a backup contract, if they're pre-occupancy, post-occupancy, if they're going to rent back, kick-out clause, if there's a problem, if something goes through, there's a clause for that.
I think the property was built in 1990, though.
No, it was. I'm just doing it just for showing you how to do the papers. Let's just
Okay.
pretend it was 78. Yeah, it does. It's not a real. Yeah, it doesn't have an HOA either, and so I'm just doing it so you guys can see the forms. If there's arbitration agreement, if it's Miami-Dade special tax, you have to do this and have the addendum. And if there's anything else, you know, if there's anything else, you would put it here, whatever you would need. Okay. And then this is the last page here where they would initial. And here you have additional terms. Okay. Now, additional terms when you're representing the buyer, do you remember the clause I told you guys about? So if you have a 10-day inspection and the inspection period's over, everything looks great. Let's say a week before closing, title comes back and says there's 3 permits that were pulled and never closed out for a remodel. Let's say they did the work and never closed the permits out. Now, if you don't have anything in there to protect the buyer is now liable for all that damage and all that fixing, and they still got to buy the property, right? Now, if you protect the buyer and put a clause in there making the seller responsible to remedy all that, this is where it would go. So we have a clause that we do that, right? So we're going to come over here and we're going to go into our clauses. Okay, I got them in here, I think. I got to find it. Like I said, this isn't my normal computer, guys. So I got to go in here and I got to go into Yo Farms. There you go. Okay, so in here we have the buyer permit clause. Okay, so I'm going to open this up. Gonna take a second. Okay, so here it is. Why the hell is it doing that? Okay, anyway, hold on. Let's get out of here. Okay, let's close that. Let's go over here. And we're gonna go back into our contract. Okay, so we're gonna come over here, and in that clause, we're gonna put number, there we go. We're gonna paste that. And we're gonna put number 1. All right, and what that says is, if buyer discovers at any time prior to closing any open permits or expired permits or improvements in which permits were required but not previously obtained, or any governmental code or any matters provided by Chapter 159 Florida statute or HOA or condo association violations, sellers shall remedy these matters at seller's cost and expense prior to closing. That protects your buyer if the seller had any hanky-panky going on, right? It protects them. All right. And that's how it works. So what that does is anytime a seller won't sign that, there's something wrong, right? They know there's something wrong. And you're going to eliminate a lot of headaches by not putting a deal together or if something doesn't work out. But this protects your buyer. So if your buyer is buying this house and putting 100 grand down and something goes wrong and they can't close on it, they'll lose that 100 grand if you don't have this in there. And guess what that buyer is going to do? He's going to sue you. He's going to sue everybody he can to try to get his money. Now, it's not saying he's going to win or she's going to win, but this here eliminates that, right? So the goal of this is to eliminate any issues. And that's why you use this. Okay. And that is going to be how you complete the first 12 pages. Now, there you go. Now, also, the state of Florida just changed the contracts. We just had it update because this is referring to countries that cannot buy property in the United States. This just went into effect the 1st of last month. So they added this information. So conveyance to foreign buyers, part 3. Okay, they just added this to the statutes. It's not even in on the test yet. It's not even in on any of the education. So anybody in these following countries, the People's Republic of China, the Russian Federation, the Islamic Republic of Iran, People's Republic of Korea, Cuba, and the Venezuelan regime, or the Syrian Arab Republic, it's a crime to buy or knowingly sell property in violation of this act. It's actually a misdemeanor. If you sell property or do a contract for any of those, you will be charged with a misdemeanor. This is something that the problem with this is Florida statute and you're not allowed to do it, but it's also discrimination under federal law. So how do you win that one? You know, there's going to be lawsuits about it. People are going to get sued. Things are going to happen. They already know that, but they threw this out there, typical government, without a solution. They just threw bullshit out there so people can get caught up and they could probably make more money off court fees. You know, that's probably why they did it. But they threw this out there, but you're following Florida law by doing this, but you're violating federal law at the same time.
Are these people that live there, or
These
people
are people-
here that may be those citizens of those places?
These are people who live there. Now, the problem is, how do you, it's a fine line, right? How do you ask somebody that without discriminating?
Wouldn't it be on their ID?
Well, their ID.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, their driver's license, their passport. Yeah. But how do you, what are you going to do? Ask them for ID when you go to, like, I guess you could ask them for ID before you show them property if they look like they're from there. Like, what are you going to, like, isn't that discrimination?
I mean, anytime I show property, I'll be asking for ID anyways.
Absolutely. That's the fact. And when you list the property, you get a driver's license, or you don't do it either, right? You got to
Exactly.
prove they're who they are. So in part, limits regulate the sales of purchase to property certain buyers who are associated with the foreign country of concern. That don't mean you have to live there. They're associated.
Now
So-
that I wouldn't know how to figure
Yeah,
out.
that's vague. That's like,
So what does that mean? You know, what does that mean? They were born in China. They're a U.S. citizen now, but they still have family in China. Are they associated with China? You know, like how do you know? You know, it's tough. It's tough. They had a seminar on this, the Florida realtors, and they confused it more than I was confused looking at it. Like you can do this, but then you have this. You can do this, but you have this. Why can't they just make a law and state it? That's it. You know what I mean? It's like, it's crazy. But this is something we have to deal with as agents or brokers. So this is something that was added in. I think I sent you guys this. I sent you guys the information on it, the slides from the presentation, and I sent you the blank contract with all the information in it. So anyway, this is the buyer's contract, okay? And now we're going to put the listing agent's name in, and we're going to put the broker's name in. Okay, whatever. Okay, we'll put that information in there. And now what you do here is you just go File, Save, and you save it. Now, this also saves automatically periodically. When you're doing a contract, you want to save it periodically because sometimes it'll freeze up and you'll lose stuff. You have to go back and do it again. So we just save that. Now we're going to exit, okay? Now we're going to go to the FHA rider, and we have to complete this one. Now the FHA rider, it already populates the information, and the appraisal has to come in at least $800,000, right? Because that's what we're offering. Okay, and then check if applicable. If it's FHA financing, you check here. If it's VA financing, you check here, right? So this is FHA, okay? And let me see here. Purchaser. Okay, or direct line, not less than. Oh, sorry, I put the wrong box. Okay, so here. This is for the inspection or any repairs. Let's say the house needs repairs. The buyer's not willing to make any repairs over $1,000. Okay. The appraisal must come in at least $800,000 because that's what we're offering, right? And then the fees and payments. Okay. Okay. So this means if the buyer's charged, they should be paid by the seller no more than $100 because the buyer is not going to be charged. The seller would have to cover any of those fees, those expenses. Okay. Or you can say 500, right? You can say 500, whatever you want to put in there. Okay. And that'll do that. That does this disclosure, right? And then if there was more buyers, it would go here. The seller will go here. The broker is going to go here. Okay. And then the other agent will go here, whatever, their name will go there when they sign their side. We're not worried about that right now. Okay, so that takes care of this one. You go file, save, and you exit it. Okay, now we're going to come down to the lead paint disclosure. And we're going to complete the lead paint disclosure. Okay, all the information's in there. That's where we'll do our initials. Okay, the seller has no knowledge of lead paint. Okay, the seller has no reports. Now we'll know this because we'll have conversations with the agent, right? I already gave you your brochure. Remember when you're showing property before the year, you have to give that brochure. You have to email it. Remember the lead paint brochure I showed you guys before? Okay, so that's there. Now, the buyer, let's say they waive their opportunity. They don't need an opportunity. They're not going to inspect for lead paint. They know it's been painted, it's been rehabbed. There's no lead paint. Let's say they decided not to. And then the buyer and the buyer's agent goes here. That's it for this page. Okay. Now, in this case, what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave this blank. So we're going to do the buyer side. Okay. And then when you send it to them for the offer, they'll complete the seller side and send it back. Okay. So we'll leave that blank. I don't want to confuse it. Okay. So there's that. Now that's done. So we're going to go save and we're going to go exit. Now, the last thing we need to do is the homeowners association. Okay. And here's your homeowners association addendum. And let's say the current amount is, $400 a month. Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. Don't do this. Okay. This here is if there's an assessment. Okay. So let's say there's no assessments. So 0, 0. There's no special assessment, 0, 0. Right?
Wouldn't the seller fill that out?
No, we fill it out because we get the information from the HOA. Like we get the information from the listing. We get the information from the agent. Is there any special assessments? Is there any? And they'll give us the information. If there is, we put it in there. Now that already comes up in negotiations. Like when you're showing the property, like I'm going to go show the property. Are there any assessments? You ask that while you're going, because if there's assessments and the seller wants the buyer to pay him and the buyer doesn't want to pay him, you don't even bother showing the property, right? There's no point in doing that. So, it just depends. You'll find that out prior. Normally that'll be disclosed in the listing too. You'll have that information.
I noticed a lot of realtors leave that blank.
Yep. You always ask them. You always ask them because they're not supposed to leave it blank, but they do. They do. And then there may be obviously be rent. There's no rent. Let's just say 0. NA. And then the buyer is going to sign this here. And then part 2 is about the approval process. So approval is required. Okay. They must do it within 5 days of that. Once you have a contract, you have 5 days to do your application. Okay. And then let's say the payment is $400 a month. Wait, hold on. That's buyer shall pay an application and initially an applicable. Okay, so let's say you have $100 one time for application. To the association.
Hey, Phil, just a heads up. I got to drop in like 5 minutes.
That's okay. I got it recorded, so I'll send you a copy if you need, man.
Okay.
And then, let me see here. Hold on. And then you could put here, let's say it's $200 per month. Fees to the association. And let's say it's a $50 background check or one-time background check association, right? So whatever you would have, you're just going to put it in there. I'm just using that as examples right now. Okay. And then here you're going to have, okay, and then there's special assessments. Okay, if it's left blank, then the buyer shall pay installments after closing. Okay, so if the seller is checked, they must pay prior to closing. So the seller is going to pay, right? It's going to be paid off before closing. And that's what the, let me see, that's the, okay, so the seller is going to pay off any outstanding. If there is one or there isn't one, you still check that box, okay? And then you would put the association person's name. What's the name of the association? What's the contact? What's their phone? What's their email? So you would put the name of the person, the name of the association, the name of the person, the phone number, and then the email. And that's who the contact would be. And then also you put their website in, blah, 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 blah. So it's all on the documented paper. Okay. And that completes this. So we saved it and exited, right? So now all the documents are completed. So what do we have to do now? We have to put this together and we have to send it for signature, right? So you're going to start with the as is. That's going to be your first form. And then you're going to come up top here and you're going to click this to sign. Okay. We go through it and make sure everything's correct. And we go sign. And it's going to say, okay, it's going to be ready to sign. Now watch this. Okay. It's going to say, the first thing you have to do is we have to go over here to documents and you have to add documents. Okay. And we're going to add in. So we have the contract in, we're going to add the HOA, the lead paint, and the FHA rider. We have to add in some more things here. The first thing we have to add in is our brokerage. Remember the extra form we have? The form with it asks them if they have an agent, if they're working with an agent. Let's see. Go here. The transaction fee disclosure, we're going to come over here. Now, normally you're going to have this in your folder, guys, right? It's a little complicated here because I have it all over the place because I'm not on my main computer. So we're going to come in here and we're going to go deal forms and we're going to put in the transaction fee disclosure. That's uploading right now. So that's in there now. Now, what else do we have to add? We have to add the MLS and the tax sheet that we put in, right? That we put on the desktop. So we're going to go documents and we're going to go add and we're going to come over here. We're going to upload them and we're going to go, to picture here. Upload and import. We're going to add a document from the computer and we're going to go to the desktop. And we're going to add the MLS and we're going to back in. I should have clicked them both. Okay. And we're going to add one more and we're going to upload and we're going to add the tax sheet. Now, also, if your driver's license would get added here, right, to verify who you are. So now we come over here. We have the contract, the homeowner association, the lead based, the FHA, the transaction fee disclosure, the MLS sheet, and the tax sheet. We would also add your loan approval, right? If we had a loan approval for the FHA loan, that would go in there. Your bank statement showing your money down, that would go in there. Also your driver's license. And that would be the whole package. Some agents will send just this and it won't be filled out correctly. This is the file. You want the whole file together. Do you remember how I showed you guys the whole files in one PDF? Then when you go to upload it, you split it and it goes 1, 2, 3 and it's in the system and everything's compliant for 24 hours after it's done. Once this is done and your agreement's done and you get it back and it's all together, everything is so smooth. You have one folder, one file with everything in it, right? And it keeps compliance good for us, okay? So there's the document. Now I have to add the signers to it, right? Right now there's nobody signing. We have the document, it's right here. All the documents here, all the forms, all the documents, it's in order now. But now somebody has to sign, right? So I'm gonna have to add signers, okay? So we're gonna come in here and we're gonna add participants. First, I'm gonna add myself, okay? So I'm gonna go in there, I'm adding myself to it. And I'm going to be broker, okay? You're gonna be agent, right? When you're doing it. You know, I'll be agent here because I wanna show you that, okay? That's good. Okay, now what's going to happen is that's there. I'm in, I'm saved, done. I'm in now. Now I need to add Michael, right? So Michael's, I need to put you in here. So I'm going to add you from the transaction. So where's Michael in here? Okay, Michael's here. Boom. Select him. Now you're going to see it populates. See, it put his signatures in everywhere. So everywhere he has to sign is already in there. You don't have to you don't have to move all the signatures in. Now, if you have to add one or two, you can. So what you want to do now, before you send it to sign, you want to review it. So there's page 1, good. Page 2, good. Page 3, good. Page 4, good. Page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, page 12, page 13 is where he's going to sign. It's going to date it. Okay. And then down here, he's going to initial there. And he's going to sign here. Now, of course, when you're doing this and it's not a test, you're going to go through it and make sure everything's super, super perfect, right? But because it's a test, I'm going through quickly to show you. And then here, lead paint, he's going to initial, and he's going to initial, sign, and then the agent's also going to sign because they're responsible for this, okay? And then here's the FHA disclosure. Right? All the information we put, you're going to initial that. You're going to sign here. And then here, this is the disclosure form that we have. Now, if you notice, this is blank, right? We got to complete this at this point. You can't just send this. There's no signatures, nothing on it, right? Because this is something we uploaded outside of the program. It's not going to populate for you, okay? So the first thing you have to do is you got to put the address in. So you're going to come over here and go tools, okay? And you're going to go text box, and you're going to put the property address, right? So you're going to put in here, property address, blah, 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 whatever, okay? Are you currently working with another agent? You're going to come over here, and you're going to put a text box. Now, when you do these, you always want the background transparent, because if the background's not transparent, look, it's going to cover the stuff, see? You always want to make this transparent. And this one, you're going to put an X here, right? So X, and we're going to move this here. Now, you don't want this hanging off. If that's hanging off, it won't let you sign it. You have to always make sure it's not hanging off, okay? Now, I'm going to copy this one. Let's see. And because you're going to use more X's. So instead of having to redo it all the time, so they're not working with an agent. This protects you. So if they're working with another agent and they're lying to you or something's not right, what do you mean? You said you're not working with an agent, right? If another agent comes to you and says, I'm procuring cause, I'm working with those people. Well, here's a document. They told me they're not working with an agent. This protects you, right? Because if you ask them and say, are you working with an agent? They say no. How do you stop them from lying to you? Now, if they say no to you and you don't have it in writing, and they say, well, I didn't tell you that, what do you do then? So anytime you make an offer or anytime you take a listing agreement, this goes in it. Okay. So this protects you. And then this reiterates. This is all this information is all in the contract, but it reiterates it to make sure they're clear on it. Okay, if there's a home warranty, there's no home warranty in this one. And there's my X that I just pasted, and that's not applicable, right? And then you come down here and go through this with them. And then the buyer and the agent sign. And this is where the transaction fee is disclosed again. It's on the contract and it's here. Okay, if you don't sign this, you cannot collect that, right? If this isn't done, that can't be collected. Even if it's on the contract, it has to be here too. Okay, so there's everything there, right? And now what do you have to do? Well, the buyer has to sign. So Michael Clemmer, I'm going to take sign and it's going to go here and I'm going to take his date and put it there. But also the agent has to sign, right? Now, if it was seller, you would just like opaque this out, write seller and opaque it out. Like, because I didn't put both on there. So you would just do a text box, opaque it and write seller or go right over it. I did that, like the one we did for Kathy. I did that, right? When we did it. So, all right. And that's that. And then you got to put the agent. So you come up here and you put the agent. The agent's going to sign here and date there. Okay. Now that takes care of that form. We're done. Now, years ago, none of it ever populated. So every initial, everything, you would have had to drag it over. But as technology got better, it started doing it for you automatically on the forms that were pre-made, which was beautiful. Could you imagine how long it would take to do every signature? And then how many times agents missed one and you had to go back and get it done?
Yeah, you could do a template for that, and then so you have that saved.
Yeah, well, for this year, I'm not sure
Mhm.
you could do it within here, within transaction desk.
Well, you'd have to do it offline, but you'd enter all those fields and then you'd save it as a
And you would just
template.
type, yeah, but I don't know. Once it's in transaction desk, I don't know how that would work. Because this program, this stuff here overrides this. So I don't know. I never tried that. I mean, maybe you could. I'm sure you can do it to handwrite it when you're doing it ahead of time. But I usually just do it now and bring it in. That way it's all one time. You don't forget it. You don't forget it. You just do it one time and it's in the folder. But whichever, I mean, maybe you could. You can make a template of anything, right? I need to make a template of the agent application. I got to actually do that. So I don't have to keep changing them. Okay, and then also at the end, that's where the MLS listing goes and the tax sheet, right? Everything's in there. The reason you want to do that is when you send it to the title company, everything's there. You don't have to send separate documents. Okay. So there's everything. Now we're ready to sign. So what do? We go next. And then it's going to come up. It's going to say finalize signing. And you can do it here. And if you wanted to remind them, if they don't sign it in the first hour and you want to remind them every hour, it will send an email every hour. You can set that up here. Okay. You can also set it up where if you want signer 1 to sign before signer 2, signer 3 to sign before signer 4, you can do all that too. Okay. And then if you want to customize invites, you can send different messages to each person. You can do that as well if there's 4 signatures, right? So what I'm going to do right now, though, is I'm just going to send it. Okay. Now, Michael, you're going to get an email in a minute, and I'm going to get an email. So it's sent. Okay. Now I'm going to go to my email. Let me do this first before you go. I can get rid of this now. So let me go into my email. It's going to request my signature on my parts, right? Okay. So let me go into my other email. And okay, let's see. It didn't come yet. Mike, is it in your email yet? Oh, here it is. See it? Your signature is requested. So I'm going to come in here. And
Yep, I got the same thing.
Yep. So You can go ahead in and sign all the blocks. Just start signing and sign them all. I'm going to go in and sign my part here, show you guys my part. So you accept it, and then you hit start, and it's going to take you to your part to sign. So I have to initial there, I have to sign there, I have to sign there, and I complete it. My part's done. So I can close this. I can come back over to transaction desk, close this, and I can refresh this. And it's going to show me one is completed. Philip signed. See the check mark next to me? Okay. Now it's going to show over here. I opened it and read it and signed. Michael opened it, but he's not done signing yet. So once you hit complete signing, Mike, let me know. And then in my email, it's going to tell me Michael opened it to read it. I did my part. It's done, right? Right. Let's go with that. All right. Now it's going to tell me. Not yet. It's going to tell me when Michael's finishes signing. Did you finish, buddy?
No, there's a lot of them.
Yeah, just click them. It'll take, just hit it. Every time you click on it, it'll take you to the next one. There's a lot. There's a lot. It doesn't mean anything though, so just sign the damn things.
Just don't send this into the.
To tell you the truth, it's probably more complete than most of them, even though it's all like bad information.
All right, I'm done. I should be done.
Okay, yep. See, it just changed on my screen. Completed. So I'm going to go to my email. See, signing completed. So I'm going to come in here. It's going to tell me, oh, wait, Mike signed it and he completed it. Okay, and it's going to say signing complete. So I'm going to go to this email and I'm going to download it. Okay. It's going to open it up. It's going to show it's completed. See, all your signatures are on it. All your initials are on it. All right. All the initials are there. All the signatures are there. Right. Signatures are there. Dates there. Now this is ready to be sent to the agent. Right. For the offer. And everything's done. See, everything's checked. Everything's signed. Done. See? Okay. So now this is done. So I'm going to download this. And it's Michael's test purchase. I'm going to save it to the desktop. Okay. Let me minimize this real quick. And there is your offer, Mike. And then we would open a folder. We would start a folder for this now, right? And then your stuff would go in the folder for everything. And that is how you put a contract together and sign it. A lot of information. Do you guys have any questions? So this is it. Now you take this, you get the agent's email, you send them an email. Hi, they know an offer's coming. You already told them the offer's coming and your offer is complete. And you tell them in an email, hi, here's your offer. Everything's in one file, all the information, the approval, proof of funds, blah, 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 blah. It's all in there. And there is your offer. Now, this doesn't mean anything until it's signed, right? But you still need to keep this, right? For compliance. You need to keep this. And this still needs to get uploaded. You got to keep it in the folder. It's got to be uploaded eventually. Okay. Make any sense? You guys good with that? It's the first time you're seeing it, so don't go crazy. And the first ones I'm going to do with you. So don't worry.
I'm doing the trainings too, through Beaches. So
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yep. The MLS trainings. Yeah.
They go through this. As a matter of fact, there's a couple different classes. One of them just covers the as-is contract.
Yeah. Yep.
That's like a 3-hour course, and then
all the MLSs have that. Crystal, for you too. A nod left, but I got to tell him he's getting ready to join the MLS now. I just sent all the information over because we just activated him, so he has to join. He has so many days to do it. The the MLS has courses on all this too. Transaction desk. Like when Mike first started, I gave him the list of courses. Mike, did you email me? Did you do a document with all the
I
courses?
do. I can send it to you.
Can you send it to me?
Yeah.
Because I actually want to use that. I'm going to give that to Crystal. I'm going to give that to Anand. And those classes, the MLS offers those. And on your own time, you go through them. There's no fee. It's just you got to take the time to do it. And the class, it teaches you every step of everything. And the MLS has that. So it's there. They're all pre-recorded. So you can watch them late at night, early in the morning, or you can go to live ones. They have live ones, but it's the same thing. It's easier to do it at night when you're not doing anything. Just watch it, while you're doing something. And
The as is.
Yeah, they made you.
They actually have a lawyer that goes through it. And he gives
Yeah,
you
well, the recording.
like a lawyer's perspective on it all, which
Yep.
is pretty neat.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, when you sign up for the MLS, they have like a requirement course, like an orientation that you got to go through, which he goes over every line of the basic contract and
Yes,
explains
yes.
it. So you had to do that.
Yeah, but I'm talking more about the software stuff, like the
Yeah,
software.
yeah, I know what you're talking about. Like that's the only thing that I've had to do so far. Like I had to do.
Yes, they make you do it. They won't give you access, right? They take the access away. That's a mandatory legal thing that they make you do. Yep. So this here is how you write a contract, guys. It'll get easier. It won't be so hard. But right now, don't worry so much on it because I'm going to help you walk through it. I'm not going to let you guys get stuck. I'm not going to let you guys have any problems. We'll do these together and we'll work on them together as we're going through them. And after we do 2 or 3 of them, you're not going to need help on them unless it's something odd. And then I can help you anytime with those too. Okay. So I'll have a recording of this. I'm going to put it up. I'll put it up on YouTube and then you guys can have access to it anytime. Okay. I'm going to start on the YouTube channel. I'm going to have training classes. I'm going to have a playlist and I'm going to put all these in there. And we'll get them done. Okay. So, all right, guys. Any questions on this before we take off?
Nope.
Okay, so not Monday, on
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah. So we're doing Tuesday.
Yeah, you have
Wednesday.
it set for Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
Right. I get my schedules is super insane right now. Hold on, I'm gonna stop the recording here, so we're good. And that's it. We're good on the purchase contract. Let me stop this now. Okay.